dark of the midnight have I all hid my face, while the storm howls above me, and there's no hiding place mid the crash of the thunder. Precious Lord, hear my cry, keep me safe till the storm passes by. Many times Satan whispers, there is no need to try, for there's no end of sorrow, there's no hope by and by. But I know thou art with me, and tomorrow I'll rise where the storms never darken the skies, till the storm passes over, till the thunder sounds no more, till the clouds roll forever from the sky. Hold me fast, let me stand in the hollow of thy hand. Keep me safe till the storm passes by. When the long night has ended and the storms come no more, let me stand in thy presence on that bright, peaceful shore, in that land where the tempest never comes. Lord, may I dwell with thee till the storm passes by, till the storm passes over, till the thunder sounds no more, till the clouds roll forever from the sky. Hold me fast, let me stand in the hollow of thy hand. Keep me safe till the storm passes by. Keep me safe till the storm passes by.
All right. How many of you love the Lord this morning? Amen. Has God ever brought you through a storm? Amen. Y'all quiet. Has God ever brought you through a storm? Amen. I want to tell you something about storms. You are either in one, coming out of one, or listen, you're fixing to go into one. That's life. That's the life of a Christian. But aren't you glad if you're saved? The storm may roll, the waves may billow, the ship may rock, but aren't you glad that we serve the one who can speak to the storm and say, peace be still to the waters, and they'll calm down. And Miss Etta, if she was here right now, I'd have her sing this song. She used to sing, Johnny, she used to sing this song all the time. Sometimes he calms the storms and sometimes he calms me. Would y'all be all right if I say this? Either one of those is fine with me, because whatever the Lord gives is exactly what we need, exactly when we need it. And he won't come back and say, oh, I'm sorry, I should have done this instead of that. You're serving a God, now, I want to see if I can make you smile, that has never made a single mistake from eternity past, here in the present, nor will he make one in eternity future. Matter of fact, the Bible said Jesus is the same yesterday, the same today, and the same forever. How many of you have read your Bible? Just say amen if you've read it. Have you found any fault with God in the Word of God? Have you found a single time where you thought, boy, you know, God shouldn't have done that? Have you found a single time where it just looked like God had to come back around and fix a mistake he made? I haven't read that. Well, listen, if he's the same God he was then, and he's the same God today, and he's going to be the same God into the future, wouldn't it stand to reason that we can put our faith in him, knowing that he will not fail us? Man, I could just almost preach this morning. Not a single amen. Oh, this tough room today, I'm telling you. All right, so thankful for that. And I want to say, Nick, come on up here, buddy. I want to get you, it's going to take a minute to get going. This guy. You know how to turn, hook this on.
All right.
Do this. You got another arm?
Yes.
All right, we're going to give him just a minute to get everything, we're going to turn everything on. Now, I was told today that Nick is, now how was it you said that? He's not computer savvy. I'm shocked. No, I'm just kidding. I love this guy. All right. Hold it just a minute. If this don't work, we'll be calling our IT guy up here, and we know who he is.
Definitely not me.
All right, now we're getting somewhere. I believe we're going to get there.
Well, I do have to say it's a lot different speaking in a church like this, because like in Peru, we would have dogs running through the church. I had a monkey run behind me at one point. Like it was like going to, I mean, you never know what was going to happen in church. And it was always fun to experience stuff like that. But like, so here in a little while, I'll get into what, like the ways that God showed up in church. And it was just really cool to see him move through. But first I'll take you through the.
Hang on, let's turn you on.
Okay.
I didn't say time for you to start. Huh?
Oh.
All right. Apparently Nick's ready to go. Okay. How old are you?
22.
He's 22 years old. For those of you that don't know, I met Nick in fall of 2019 at Cleveland State. And he sat the first day of class, first week or so of class.
Yeah.
He sat up towards the front. I think he was trying to get in good with the instructor. And let me just say, by the end of the semester, there wasn't a chance of that happening,
No.
okay? So anyway, I sat in the back, and after a few weeks, Nick began to sit with me, and we instantly had a connection. And I found out that he was a Christian, and I want to tell you something about him. He was not ashamed on that liberal college campus to let people know he was a Christian. And I was so proud of that. I was so very proud of that, to see somebody in there, you would have been what, out of high school? Right out of high school,
Yeah.
then. Right out of high school, that wasn't ashamed of Jesus. And we hit it off. And after COVID came and we weren't able to, classes went crazy and everything went online, we reconnected, I guess, on Facebook.
Yeah.
And we've had lunch a time or two. He called me out of the blue, and he told me what he was going to do, and I was so excited for him. And if you remember, he came here and give us a little preview of what he was going to do. He didn't know where he was going and didn't know what he was going to do. And along the way, he gave me updates, and I'm just so happy. Are you ready now?
Yes.
Okay. So Nick's going to talk us through his trip. How many of you going to pray for him this morning? Because public speaking is not an easy thing, and he can jabber like no end. But William, you better be ready on that soundboard. All right. So do you want me to work your slides for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're glad to see Nick at Mercy Baptist Church, give him a hand this morning. Let him know you're glad to see him.
All right. Like I said before, I'll walk y'all through my experiences in Hawaii, and then we'll move into going to Peru. So this was one of my first days in Hawaii. I didn't know what to expect. So like riding the public bus was kind of a shock because, like, you know, here in the South, it's like, hey, how you doing? And everybody's like, oh, I'm good. There it's, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Or they're doing the, hey, how you doing? Whenever I first got there, it was kind of hard to communicate with people because, like, they would just walk down the street and ignore you. So I started getting frustrated with that. So I sat on the bus one day, and every time somebody got on, I go, hey, how you doing? Well, eventually, everybody in my class didn't want to ride the bus with me because I was talking to everybody on the bus. All right, if you want to go to the next slide. All right, so on the far left, that is us on the west side. We worked with an organization called West Side Live, and so we worked with the homeless. It was really close to I think we called it the boat harbor. Yeah, we called it the boat harbor, and so it was homeless people, and so like these are some really nice tents. Like I'm talking like 2-story tents, like not like 2 levels in these tents. Okay, and so we got to feed them barbecue. We got to hang out with them. We got to just do daily life with them and just get to talk with them about the one who saved us, you know. And we seen 6 people come to Christ there, and we got to baptize, I think, 3. And one of them was deaf. That was really cool too, because one of the girls, she knew sign language, and so she was able to communicate with that lady, and she ended up wanting to be saved. And so it was really cool to see that, because I'd never really, seen that, the hand motions and stuff. So, and then I know I forgot to zoom in the picture, but me and one of my friends from Athens, we were sharing our testimony. They asked us to share a testimony, and so we're sharing it with a whole bunch of people we didn't know. And so, yeah, we're sharing, and then after we're standing over to the side of the stage, and this guy comes up and goes, "You and your wife did pretty good." I said, "We're not together." Yeah. And then the second picture, that's just another picture of us. See, it was probably over 100 people, just there, that lived there. And so we got to share with them and just get to walk them through the gospel. And we got to see also some people be healed, which was pretty cool. I never really seen that, in front of me, somebody get healed. There was one guy, he had really bad shoulder pains, and his shoulder pains went away after we prayed. Now, the one on the far right, here we go. So, the day before, me and my team, after we found out my team was going to the jungle of Peru, the other team found out they're going to the mountains of Peru. That's never happened before at our campus. The campus that I was at, that's never happened before. 2 teams go to one country. They were like, this is unheard of, but the Lord is telling us He wants y'all both to go to Peru. So we found out we were going to Peru, and so we were like, let's have a beach day. So my team, we head off to the beach, and we're hanging out and just having fun. And then we went hiking. Beautiful. I don't have pictures of it on the screen, but it was like, we watched sunset. We got to watch the stars. And I was just like, wow, like I'm getting to see like this beautiful view, and just so thankful for what the Lord's done for me, and just in the time that I had in Hawaii. And then, so I wake up the next morning at like 5 a.m. and I have this severe pain. Like I went outside, I got me a big old bottle of water, and I just sat outside trying to drink, and I don't know what that was supposed to do, but in my head I thought, well, I'll drink a lot of water, it'll be all right. Well, I sat down, and it just got worse and worse. And I went up to the kitchen because I knew breakfast was about to be served, but I didn't want to eat. I wanted somebody to see me that I was in pain because I didn't want to tell somebody I was. So I was like, I'll just go up there because I thought I was about to pass out because like the pain was so bad. So I go up to the kitchen. I'm sitting outside, and I'm just like, oh, wow. And so one of the guys comes out of his house, and he's like, you don't look too good. And I'm like, I'm not. I said, I need to do something. I need to go somewhere. So we ended up going to the doctor, a walk-in clinic. And I sit down, and the doctor's like, the nurse was like, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I was in the surf all day yesterday. I don't know. That might be part of it. And so she got the doctor come in there. He come in there, and he started asking me like what the problem is. And as soon as I told him, he touched me in the spot, and then he ran out of the room because I screamed pretty much. I was in so much pain. And he runs out of the room, and he comes back, and he goes, an ambulance is on its way. And I said, what? He said, yeah, an ambulance is on its way. And I was like, oh, okay. And so at this point, I'm freaking out, and me and my leader, or the guy that's over my team, we're sitting in the room, and I'm like, this is hard. I'm going to the hospital. And I'm like, I'm freaking out. And so as we're sitting there, I just felt like I should read James 1, 2 through 7 in the hospital room. I mean, in the doctor's office. Here we go. James 1, 2 through 7. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea blown and tossed by the wind. So that verse like really gave me comfort in that moment. And so I'm freaking out because I'm like, my mom's back in Tennessee. She's going to be freaking out whenever I call her. And so they come and get me, the paramedics, they put me on the stretcher, and they put me in the back of the ambulance. And as I was being put in the ambulance, I was like, I can glorify God in this, or I could be mad at God. And I was like, let's glorify Him through this experience. So as we're going down the road, I was hoping we were going to have lights and sirens. We just had lights. I was kind of disappointed because I paid a lot of money for an ambulance ride that we didn't get those sirens. But so as we're riding in the ambulance, I'm feeling like every bump, and the pain's just getting worse. And I started talking with the paramedic, and I'm like, you know Jesus? And she's like, no, not really. And so we got to talking, and she says, but I'm Buddhist. I said, okay, what does that mean? And she started talking to me about like what that means. And then I was like, well, does anybody in your family know Jesus? And she was like, yeah, my dad's a born-again Christian. And I said, well, why don't you ask your dad his story? Because I bet he's got a good one. Because, every Christian has good testimony at some point. And so she was like, yeah, I really might have to do that. So I was like, okay. I was like, let's see what happens now. So I get into the hospital, and I felt like I was being called there for a reason. And so every nurse that come in and out, I was just like asking them questions about Jesus and talking to them about Jesus. I got to meet some nurses that had never heard the name Jesus. And so I got to walk them through with that, like the gospel. And as I was laying in one of the beds, the nurse or the doctor comes in and they're like, "We're going to admit you to the hospital." I'm like, "What? You're going to admit me?" And they're like, "Yeah." They're like, "You got a 6-centimeter kidney stone." Yeah, don't drink Mountain Dews, but Mountain Dews are good. And so as they're admitting me, I just felt like I was still being called there for a reason. So they put me in my room. There's this and so this room it's just a regular hospital room, but in this one it had a guy on the guy in this corner, and then it had me, and we had this sheet in front of us. And so I got put in my room, and I was talking with the nurse about Jesus, and my roommate starts talking with me, and he goes, "Oh, you're from YWAM?" I said, "Yeah." And YWAM stands for Youth with the Missions, and I did a DTS, which stands for Discipleship Training School. So we just do school pretty much. We have speakers come in, we get to learn a lot about God. And so I was telling him what that school is, and he was like, "Yeah." He was like, "I know the guy who started it." And I'm like, "Really?" And so we got to talking, and his name was Tom. I got to meet Tom that night, and so he loved to hike, and I love to hike, but not in Hawaii because it was so hot. But I was talking with Tom, and we got to talking, and Tom had a surgery at another hospital that went terribly wrong, and he had this 3-centimeter scar or cut that went down, and so we got to talking, and we started talking about Jesus, and because he loved pouring into younger kids, and he was saying that nobody's really doing that anymore, and I was like, it's like my buddy Greg. My buddy Greg, he helped me through some stuff before, and so I got talking with him about that, and so the whole point of that story is while I was in the hospital, me and Tom just become really good friends, and I got to end up praying with him about because with this surgery that he had in the scar, he was going to be looking at it was going to be really expensive for him and his family, and he worked for college that didn't make much money, so he was so worried about how he was going to find financial support for that. And I was like, "Well, let's pray about it." So I started praying with him and started praying about his scar. His cut. And before I left, so that happened right before my surgery. I was just praying about financial support and stuff. And at this point, I'm still freaking out. Okay, so about my surgery because I didn't know what to expect. I knew that my parents have had kidney stones before, so I didn't know what to expect from me. So as they come and get me, they're wheeling me to the pre-op, and so I'm like, "God, I know that I want to glorify you through this, and I'm terrified right now." And so as they're taking me to the OR, they put me on the table, and as I lay there, I said, "Okay." I said, "Give me that Michael Jackson stuff," because I was ready for a good sleep. And so as they were hooking me up, like the guy that gave me the medicine, he had to walk out of the room because he was laughing so hard. And so as I'm laying there, I just feel this peace again of I know that God's with me in this moment. And so as I'm laying on the operating table, I go to sleep, and I know that this is going to sound crazy, but I know that I walked with God in this moment because I woke up in this beautiful meadow, and the sun was setting. It was just a beautiful meadow. And I felt this tap on my shoulder. And he said, "Let's walk with me." And so I got to walk with Jesus through my surgery. And the way that I know that I actually got to walk with him, and it's not like a hallucination, is that whenever I woke up in recovery, the nurse said, "I've tried to wake you up for 45 minutes." And I said, "I didn't want to be woke up." And so they take me back to my room. And as I'm laying there in my bed, me and Tom just start talking again. And because of my medicine, I just went to sleep real quick. Wake up next day, and they're like, "Okay, we're going to discharge you." And I'm like, "Okay, sweet." And so as I'm putting on my clothes to leave, Tom gets a phone call, my roommate. He gets a phone call, and it's somebody high up in the hospital, like ran the hospital, and they're like, "Hey, Tom, we've heard your story. We want to cover all your expenses for your hospital stay and your machine that's going to help you find recovery." And so he just starts crying. And the nurse comes in, she's like, "Tom, why are you crying?" He's like, "The hospital called. They're going to pay for everything." And so Tom starts crying. The nurse is like, she can't believe it. She's like, "I remember you. You prayed for this yesterday." She said, "I walked in whenever you were praying for this." I said, "Okay." I was like, "This is what Jesus does." And next thing I know, she brings 4 nurses in there with her. And she's like, "You got to look at this. This guy prayed for this guy." And I was like, and they're like, "You're special." I said, "No." I said, "He's the one that makes me special." And I said, and he can walk, and he wants to walk with you too. And so I got to share with some nurses that day that had never heard. Yeah, yep. And then, so I get out of the hospital, and the guy that runs the school that I'm at, he comes and gets me, and he's like, "So how was the hospital stay?" And I was like, "It was great." Even though the surgery and stuff, I said, "It was great." And whenever I would say it was great, people go, "Huh, you had surgery?" And I'm like, "Other than that, it was great." I mean, also they had this menu. I know this is has nothing to do with the story, but they had this menu, and you picked what you want. It's pretty good food. I've never been to the hospital that had that, but if you'll go to the next slide. All right, here we go. Oh wait, a week before we left for Peru, me and my team, we had it was called an outreach simulation. So what we did was we set these chairs up, and everybody sat in a chair, and then we played a recording of a baby crying to get us ready for the airplane, which came in handy on the airplane. So as we're sitting there, I had a life straw. One that you supposedly can stick in a creek and drink from it. Well, that's a lie. So we're doing a simulation of what it could look like on outreach. So I grabbed my life straw and I went down the creek. And some of my teammates followed me, and I just stuck my head around in and drank from it. Didn't think nothing about it. 2 days pass, or a day passes, and I woke up so sick. So sick. All right, let me back up for a moment, real quick. So whenever I was having the kidney stone, they said, "You should not go to Peru." And I was like, "Oh no." I said, "I came from all the way from Tennessee. I'm going to Peru." I said, "I don't care if they have to duct tape a puke pen around my neck. I'm going to Peru." And so as I'm getting sick again, I go to the same walk-in clinic, and they're like, "He's too sick. He can't be seen here. He needs IVs." Oh, so I go to a different hospital. And on the way there, I tell my team, because there was a couple of us that were sick, I was like, "Y'all might not like this, but I prayed that I'd go back to the hospital because I had such a great experience." I see you putting your head down back there, Mom. So as we're So I want to explain something real quick. I don't mean that like God made me sick to go to the hospital. Like that was my own choice to use the life straw, and it was just cool to use that time again to, pour into people around me. And so as I go into the hospital this time, they have to give me almost 4 IVs because I was so dehydrated. And so they're like, you shouldn't go to Peru because like you leave in a week. Or like, you leave less than a week. No, there's no way you're going to Peru. I said, oh no, I'm going to Peru. I said, I went through kidney stone surgery. I said, I'm going to Peru. And I was like, God's called me here for purpose, so I know I'm going. And the nurse is like, well, you're pretty confident that you're going. Why are you so confident? I'm like, God's called me here to go to Peru, and I'm going to Peru. And so, So I prayed that night whenever I got out of the hospital. I prayed that night that whenever I woke up the next day, I would be completely fine and I'd get to go to Peru. I wake up the next day. I still had a little bit of stomach issues, but most of them went away. So I was able to pack. We went to Peru. And so this is my favorite. I would rather talk about Peru than talk about Hawaii because of so much of what happened in Peru. So in Peru, it's mostly like Catholics. So we got to do like some evangelism, but we can only do evangelism if we had a translator with us because they speak Spanish. So if I ever pause up here, it's because I'm used to having a translator with me. And then also, like we went to this one church, and there was this big old tarp in the floor, and they're like, "Don't step on the tarp." I'm like, "Okay," because I'm a big old boy, so so I can't get around the tarp. And so they also, our team had a team dance. and so like sometimes we had to jump in this dance, and I was like, and they looked at me, some of them looked at me and they said, "No bueno." My translator's like, "They're trying to tell you not to jump." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." And so a few things that happened in Peru in our first couple of weeks was we were in a church, and this guy came in shuffling in his feet like this. Like he was just shuffling in his feet. He could barely walk. And so we got to pray with him. I felt like the Lord was saying, pray for him. So after the service, during the service, one of my friends in the middle of the sermon, he had talked about healings. And so a lot of the crowd came up to get healed for stuff. And so I prayed for that guy, and nothing happened. Prayed for him again with 2 of my teammates. And we were like, let's pray again. Why not? Because, I mean, God prayed 3, Jesus prayed 3 times for people, so why not pray more than 3 times if we have to? So that 3rd time, we're praying for the guy. And he says, "All glory to God," in Spanish. And we're like, what's happening? And so he had told our translator that he was completely healed. And I was like, really? And so we watched him walk out of the church, and he walked out perfectly fine. And so it was really cool to see that because I'd never really seen a healing like that happen in front of me. And another experience that we had was, let's see. I had another one. Wait, that comes later. So a couple other things we got to do was we ran a lot of church services, but with our first contact, so we had people that knew the area, and we're very well established in Peru. So with our first contact, we did a lot of kids ministry. Now, I'm not, before that, I wasn't the biggest fan of doing kids ministry, but through that, I loved getting to hang out with kids. Before the end of the trip, I was blowing up balloons. I was blowing up a lot of balloons for kids, and it was a lot of fun to just get to play with the kids, bring laughter to them. We went to this river community. So whenever we got to Peru, we went to river communities, which were just like houses on the river. And then we went to tribes. The river communities would just be like houses like either on the water or like on the land close to the water. And so with that, we got to see, we got to go to these river communities that like the pastors were just like you could just tell like they were just wanted to give up, like they just were giving up. And so we got to come in and just like the Holy Spirit just like used us to breathe life back into these pastors that just wanted to give up because of COVID. Like we stayed on rivers that were called. We stayed on a river called I don't remember what it was called, but its nickname was Taxi River because there'd be so many taxi boats coming up and down the river every day. And so because of COVID, whenever COVID first hit, they shut down all traffic on the river. So like the taxis were not allowed to come up and down the river. So people were not allowed to come in these villages, in these communities because of COVID. And a lot of people said, well, I don't want to go to church because I don't want to get sick. So the pastors were just like they just wanted, some of them just wanted to give up, like just stop being a preacher. And so we got to, encourage them. And then we walked into this one church. I've been playing with the kids all day, and it was a lot of fun. And I come into the church, and me and the whole team were talking with this pastor, and all of a sudden the pastor just breaks down, in the middle of the floor. Like I'm talking like tears, like you can see his tears on the floor. And he's like, I had a dream about y'all. And we're like, what? He said, I had a dream I told my wife a couple weeks ago that missionaries were coming. See, whenever we showed up at this community, they don't have cell phones out there. So there's no way for them to know that we're coming. So we would just jump off the boat and be like, hey, we're here. And so this pastor, he's just crying. He just can't believe that God fulfilled his promise that he's bringing missionaries. And so this guy's just crying. And me and him just locked. I just bear hugged him. And he just crying on my shoulder. And he was just so overwhelmed with just the presence of God in that moment. And it was really cool to see that because you could just tell just lifted his spirits that we were able to just come in and just talk with him and we got to pray over him and his family and his ministry. And it was just a really cool opportunity to get to do that. And then we'll go to if you don't care, go to the next slide. Let's see. So, no, you're good. Okay, so these are a couple of fun photos that I took along the way. So the one on the left is me on a motor cart. Whenever I first got to Peru, I thought I was on the show Amazing Race. It was really cool to get to ride on with them. It's like a motorcycle with just a cart on the back. It was a lot of fun, but we blew up one engine. I rode, so you just wave your hand and it'd be like you seen. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. You wave your hand and it's I mean, they break your neck. They'll break their own necks trying to get to you. Yeah, it's very competitive whenever you're out on the street and you're like this, trying to get a taxi. Oh yeah, they'll break their own necks. So this is a fun way to travel. It was so much fun, but I got one story for you. We were going up this hill, and the guy's engine's and I'm like, uh-oh, this ain't good. I'm like, big old boy plus bad engine, this ain't going to equal good. So we're going up the hill, and all of a sudden, you just heard it. I said, oh, great. He looked at me, he turned around, he said, what was it he said? I don't remember what he said. He said not good. He said I forgot how to say it. He said not good in Spanish. I was like, sí. I was telling him yes, and So I had to get out and push it like to the side of the road. Yeah. I had several other experiences like that because, these carts are made for Peruvians, not big old boys. And so this is the second picture is the front of the boat. They used me as like a lookout for like logs in the water and stuff. It was a lot of fun traveling on the water because, it was like almost being on the Hawassi because of how muddy it was, but just a whole lot muddier. So it made me feel like I was at home at times. And so, so that was on our way to our last river community. It was called Lisboa. And at Lisboa, I have a picture in here later I'll show you, but at Lisboa, we went to this church. First time I'd ever been to a church where I got on a canoe and canoed to the front of the church. And so as we were, what was I saying? Oh yeah, as we were unloading the big boat to get people in this church, I was in there by myself, and I felt like the Lord was saying, "Pray over this church and this ministry." I was praying over this church and this ministry, and the preacher, he was like 90, I want to say. And so it was fun to interact with him because, like, sometimes he'd be talking to you and you just go, and so it was like in the kids ministry. I mean, we're being loud, and he's like, I'm like, wow, we must be pretty good entertainment. Put the preacher sleep. And so he asked us last night. That night he said, "Will you come back do a night sermon?" And so my leaders were like, "Yeah, would somebody like to volunteer?" And I was like, "I'll volunteer." And so we would do a testimony and a sermon. And this was the first time that we had done something like this. I asked my leaders, I said, if somebody don't want to do a testimony, can I do the testimony and sermon? So I ended up doing the testimony and sermon. I got to do the testimony to just like be vulnerable with the crowd. And then with my sermon, I got to tell like a family testimony of what God's done. And it was just like a really powerful night because I didn't want to give that sermon that night. And the Lord's like, "You're giving the sermon?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "Oh, yeah." So on the way to church, the Lord revealed to me that I had to do that sermon. So I did the sermon. It went very well. But my favorite thing about being at Lisboa was that night the pastora. So a pastora is a pastor's wife, but it's just a fancy name for it. And so this pastora, she had barely eaten in like months, and like you could tell because like her stomach was like consuming itself. Like she was so tiny. I mean, she's only like this tall, or like about that tall. Okay, and so she had barely eaten, and so the pastor's like, "Will you pray for our team?" We're like, "Yeah, we'll pray for y'all." Because like we always prayed over the pastor and their wife and their ministry and like their family, and so we got to pray with this pastora, and at the end of it, her face was lit up like smiling. She's smiling, she's running around hugging everybody. I mean I didn't do it justice right there, but I'm talking like she was sprinting around the circle, and she told our chancellor, she said, "I'm going home to feast." So she went home and had like a big meal because like the Lord healed her that night, and it was really cool to see that. We also seen one lady. She had been sick for a while, and they're not sure if it was COVID related or not. And so we got to pray with her. And like she was this old lady, and she was wanting to be able to like do stuff more around the house instead of laying in the bed. So we got to pray with her, and she could still like move and everything, but like she would get like she was about to pass out, like blackout, or like just got like really dizzy. And so the Lord healed her of that. And like my team went to go sleep on the boat, and I was just like, I can't sleep because like I'll be a zombie for the rest of the day. So I'm sitting there with the translator, and we look over, and this lady, the lady that we've been praying for, she just picks up this like big old oil barrel, and I'm like, what? It was like, you could barely stand a while ago. Now you're picking up a big old oil barrel. And so that was really cool to see. And then one of my most favorite stories is one of the houses, one of our first trips to the river communities was we were going to this pastor's house. We get there and we pulled the boat. Like, we tied the front of the boat to his front door, like, because of the flood. It was flooding over there. So, like, we tied the boat to the front door. Like, I mean, that's pretty cool. So we get out of the boat, we go in this house, and on the far left of his house, he had a pet sloth. So, yeah, we got to hold a sloth, and that was really cool because, I mean, I've never seen a wild sloth other than the zoo. And so we got to hold the sloth, and he had this, and his granddaughter, the pastor's granddaughter, had cerebral palsy. And it was really cool to be able to interact with her because, like, she was so happy at where she was at. Like, like, her circumstances didn't matter. Like, she had the biggest smile. And it was really cool because every time we mentioned the word Jesus, even in English, we'd say Jesus. And she would light up with the biggest smile I've ever seen. And it was really cool to get to interact with her. And that was one thing that like really changed me in Peru was like, no matter your circumstances, like God's got you. And no matter what you're going through, the Lord's right there with you. And don't let your circumstances define who God is. And that's one thing that's one of the biggest things that I learned is don't let your circumstances define who God is. Because people told me I wasn't supposed to go to Peru. Sorry, I went to Peru. So, that's one of the biggest things that I want to leave y'all with today. We're not done with slideshow. I don't want you to think we're done, but I just want to say, don't let your circumstances define who God is. And so, as we're praying, and so, as we're holding the sloth and stuff, and as we're, I'm playing with this, making this little girl laugh, dancing, and she's just got the biggest smile on her face, and so the pastor's wife, she was she could barely see. And her one thing is she wanted to see so that she could read the Bible again. She wanted to, that was her request. And I was just like, wow. Come on, Lord, let's see her be healed today. And I was just hoping for it. And that she said that's all she wanted. She wanted to be able to see, to read again. So we got to pray with her. And on the third time, she said, I can read again. I'll be able to read the Bible tonight. And she's crying, and it was just an overwhelming time of just the goodness of God. And once again, don't let your circumstances define who God is, because she didn't shut down. She was just the Lord's going to heal me. That's what she told her translator. She said, the Lord's going to heal me one day. And so it just happened to be the day that we were there. And that was one thing that was just so cool to me, was just seeing a lady that had just a simple thing of, I want to be healed so I can read again. I was just like, wow. I have good I can see, and used to, I'd be like, I don't want to read today, but that's one thing that's can change me too is take out the opportunity to just, say, God, I'm yours. And so now we'll go to the next slide. All right. So the picture on the left, that is at the pastor's house where the story that I just got done telling, where the lady was healed of the vision and like being able to see again to read. The sloth that ain't pictured because I forgot to put that in there, but the sloth was like right behind us and to the right. That was fun, like going to that house, because like it's like literally in like literally not on the water, it's in the water. So like it gave it a different so it was pretty cool to say that I was in a house like in the water. And then the one next to the one I was just talking about, that is at the Kendoshi tribe. The Kendoshi tribe, we got to do that toward the end of our outreach. The Kendoshi tribe was a lot of fun. Okay, so I got some stories for those, like kind of funny stories, and then we'll get some more serious toward the end. So in these tribes, I would walk around barefoot, with the jungle kids. With the jungle kids. I got to walk around with them, like barefoot. Like I was just like, who needs shoes? I was like, they're not wearing shoes. I don't need shoes. So I just walked around with the kids barefoot. And then me and a couple of my friends, we got bored one day, and we were like, oh, here's some rocks we can jump off of. There's water. Let's jump off of these rocks. So we got the kids do it with us. That was a lot of fun too, because I mean, you get to say I swam in the Amazon, and so we got to play with that was actually my favorite ministry, is living with the tribes, because like we got to actually like live life with these people. And like, I mean, like I'm also one of the people where I'll try anything at least once. So I got to eat monkey, and monkey tastes like a rib or a steak. Everybody asked me, did it taste like chicken? No, it didn't taste like chicken. And then I have a little story about that. So the day before, so they would have these little it's not big monkeys, like these little tiny, like almost looking like a spider monkey that would sit on their shoulders, and they'd have a string tied to its tail. So they would walk around with these little monkeys on their shoulder. Well, the day that we tried the monkey, the little girl that had the monkey the day before didn't have her monkey that day. And I'm looking at the grill, and I'm like, oh, let's try the monkey. And everybody on my team's like, where's the little girl's monkey? And I didn't know how to break it to them. I said, okay. I said, let's do a little bit of math. Let's do a little bit of math here. I said, okay, she had a monkey yesterday. She don't have a monkey today, and there's a monkey on the grill. I said, put two and two together, we're eating her pet. So we got to do stuff like that. We got to try some weird foods, like I ate turtle head. Yeah, like our first community, or the first tribe that we went to, we were leaving, and the pastor of the community, he was like, hey, I got y'all a gift. And we're like, okay. He had just this live turtle. And so what they did was they put like a stick through the legs and then tied a rope to it, so it couldn't go nowhere, like it couldn't walk off. So we had this turtle that couldn't walk off, and we kept it for like a week. I mean, for like almost 6 days after. We had, like, the pastor gave us the turtle, and I was like, when are we going to eat the turtle? And then the pastor was like, oh! And then the translator was like, can we eat it tonight? So we got to eat turtle. And with these tribes, we got to hold church services. So it was like they called it a conference. So like we had these pastors and people from all these tribes, from the Kendoshi tribe. Kendoshi tribe were like I think it was like early 1900s. I think they were, or like before 1900s. They were, I can't remember if they were headhunters or not, but whenever I first heard that, I was like, oh boy, I got a big old head. This ain't going to be real good. So some So we did this dance. Oh, Lord. So we did this dance for like, let's see. We did this dance for probably over 100 times. And it was literally this. That's all it was. Oh, yeah. We did that for at least 3 hours every time we had, or almost 2 hours every time we had a service. So it wasn't like, there wasn't sitting. It was they grabbed your hand and you're doing it. And so so these conferences, it would be like a whole bunch of leaders from other Kendoshi tribes that would come here to this conference. And so we held 3 different conferences in 3 different tribes. And so our first one, we got to hold our conference, and we got to really get to hang out with the village people, and that was so much fun to just live life with them and just walk through daily life with them and hold these conferences. And one of my favorite things is one of the chiefs. The chief of the first community, first tribe, he said he had his translator use Google Translate because, I don't know how he had service, but he did. I guess he had it downloaded, but he used Google Translate. So Kendoshi language, it's an indigenous language, so you can't learn it nowhere else. So the only way to learn it is in that tribe. But they had translators that could go from Spanish to Kendoshi. So whenever I would speak, or whenever my team would speak in these tribes, we would have a translator that went from English to Spanish, and then from Spanish to Kendoshi. So I would have 2 translators with me whenever we spoke. So that was also kind of fun because I could speak and then have almost 10 seconds to think about what I'm going to say, because here I say something wrong and everybody's like, oh, he said that wrong. There it's nobody realizes it. And so with these conferences, we got to do the dances with the people. They even did an old tribal dance that they only do, that they do now. That they used to do, because now they said that they follow Jesus. And so with these conferences, we did 3 conferences, 3 different days, and it would be okay, so it would start at around 9, I want to say, and then it would go to 12:30, and then there would be another it would go from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and then we would have a little break, and then around 12 we'd have somebody else, we'd have another speaker. And then we would have dinner. And then we'd have another speaker for the night service. So we would have 3 or 4 speakers every day. And so that was so much fun because the way that God moved through those tribes was before COVID, they were having revivals leading up to COVID. And then whenever COVID happened, nobody could go into these tribes. So my team was one of the first ones in since COVID. So that's been 3 or so years, and so we seen a lot of people say, I don't know Jesus. So we got to pray with them. There was some people that said, I want to know Him better. So we would break them up into groups. So the people that want to know Him better, we'd have them come up, and then we'd have the team, and then we'd have the people that didn't know Jesus to come up. And then we'd have the people that wanted healings and stuff, they'd come up. And so we broke them up into groups, and that's the way that we did it. And so we seen probably, I think we counted over 120 people come to Jesus. That's including people that didn't know Him and people that wanted rededication. And so it was really cool to just see God move and use our team. And it was so just cool to be in the moment and just get to experience Jesus' love for all these people. And sometimes
like you would cry with these people and like get to just, even though they can't speak your own language, you're getting to just share the gospel with them. I mean, even though they don't understand you, like you could tell, like with some of these people, like you could understand that they understood, even though we don't speak the same language. I know that sounds confusing, but and so that was one of my favorite things, was just going to the tribes and getting to just see God move in those, because like I said, nobody had been there since like COVID. So that's like 3 years. So it was just so cool to just be the hands and feet of Jesus in those moments. All right, if you want to go next. Oh wait, so the one beside the second, over here, the third one. That's us praying over the pastora that was healed, with the one that told our translator that she's going home to feast. That's the picture that, I think it was our translator that took that one. And then on the far right, I know you can't see it, but she has a huge smile on her face. And so does the pastor. Because I think you got some good sleep there, my sermon. I'm just kidding. So that was, she's smiling in that picture. It was so funny because like every time you look at the picture, she's just like, and it's more of, what's the word for it? It's more of like you could just tell that the Holy Spirit was just was there to make her smile like that. I mean, it was just so it's so cool. All right, if you want to go next slide. Yeah. Huh? Oh. Yeah, and then here's some pictures. Here's some pictures of me with the kids. And then there's some more tribe pictures. And then there's me. I just took a picture by a random church. And then, who knows? I don't know what comes next, so I'm praying through that. But whenever I know, I'll let y'all know. Yep.
Here's what he told me. Give me a mic. Here's what he told me, and you tell me if I'm wrong. Okay?
All right.
But you don't know what it is exactly the Lord's got for you to do yet, but you know your heart's pulling in that direction. So here's what I want us to do. How many of you will help Nick pray that God would give him clear direction about his future? Will y'all do that? How many of you would like for Nick to come back and see us sometime? I told you he was a nut. All right. I know this. Now you know. This is my boy. I was worried that he wouldn't have anything to say this morning.
Come on, Greg.
I know. All right. Thank you, Nick. Give me another hand. Just take it back there. That's fine. All right. Stand up with me this morning. We're going to take up our Sunday morning offering on the way out.